Fantastic spoke about the Windsor sewage divestment scheme, and you used it as Darth Vader terms when you spoke about it. Pray the deal doesn't change again.
Indeed. All right then. So let's explain this for listeners that might not be up to speed with this. Hawkesbury Council is in a peculiar situation. Through a historical anachronism, we are the only council in the Sydney metropolitan area that owns and runs our own sewerage system. It's a weird thing, but the sewerage pipes and system and the sewage treatment plants in various places, including there at McGrath's Hill, Mulgrave, opposite Windsor High School, is all owned by council. Everywhere else, it's owned and run by Sydney Water. And Sydney Water are a huge organisation that have huge economies of scale, and even if something very expensive happens somewhere on their network, it's not as though the people in that area are disadvantaged because those costs get spread across the whole state.
Yeah.
Or at least across all of Sydney.
And they have a large maintenance team that can react quickly.
Exactly. Whereas we have a problem with our sewerage and our ratepayers cop it in the neck. And the poster child for that phenomenon is when Rising Main C broke, which is a pipe that takes all of the poo from Windsor, South Windsor and Bligh Park across to the sewage treatment plant across South Creek and to the sewage treatment plant there at Mulgrave. And it broke. There was a bank subsidence during the floods. The pipe broke and it cost us $30 million to fix. Now, how on earth could fixing one pipe cost $30 million?
Pretty easily, quite
quickly. It broke, and then we started to fix it, and then we had 2 or 3 more floods in quick succession. So everything that was started went back to ground zero and repeatedly. Secondly, we couldn't ask those people in Windsor, South Windsor and Bligh Park to just stop flushing their toilets.
That's what the RAAF did.
So what we did is that we had a system of trucks that basically took what would have gone through the pipe by trucks to the sewage treatment, and those trucks had to run 24/7 for months and months and months and months and months, and the costs just added up.
Yeah.
I would have put the view that it would have been cheaper in the long run for us to buy trucks and employ drivers as council assets.
You're probably right.
If you knew that you would need this for the length of time that we did. But of course, it's only hindsight that's 2020. So what our staff did is that they hired those trucks and they hired those drivers
they did what they had to.
At commercial rates. And the bill ended up being stratospheric. Could better decisions have been made? Yes. Could we have known in advance that when we started up this cycle of trucks and drivers is that we would need them for, and I can't remember how many months it was, but let's say it was 4 months, 6 months. It was a stupidly long length of time. That's where the money went. And we're so unhappy about the fact that it was so eye-wateringly expensive and that it's our ratepayers that incurred that debt, that we've got an independent investigator looking at the way that this issue was handled, the way it was handled organisationally by council and its staff, and in terms of what information were provided to councillors and whether we were provided enough information to provide guidance to staff at the right times with the right data, and that investigator is yet to produce their finding. But, I mean, it's been really expensive, and our ratepayers have copped it in the neck precisely because this is our asset. But it gets worse. Several of our sewage treatment plants, and again, I'm largely thinking of the one at Mulgrave, are approaching the end of their life.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can do with ongoing maintenance to extend that. If we had to replace that sewage treatment plant at Mulgrave, it would cost tens of millions of dollars. And again, that would be our money, or the debt that we incur on behalf of just our... Now, if this was owned by Sydney Water, they would amortise those costs and they would, charge the same rate for sewerage that other people under Sydney Water sewerage get charged elsewhere in Sydney, and then they would be landed with the bill to replace or circumvent the sewage treatment plant at Mulgrave and so forth. That's the argument that's effectively been put to us.
Yeah.
On the other side of that argument is the fact that these assets have a capital value of $170-odd million. It's not an insubstantial asset.
No.
And yet, the terms that have been presented to us by Sydney Water say, we will take all of these assets off your hand for nothing.
Yeah, and that's my gripe too.
For like $1.
Yeah, no.
And furthermore, because
There's age and
because sewer is run as a business unit within council, its funds are kind of segregated. It's our debt, it's also our revenue, because it is a revenue-producing arm of council, and it produces a modest dividend, except for those times where suddenly it's in the hole because something breaks, like that huge pipe. But they've told us that they won't take that debt on. Originally, we were promised in these negotiations with Sydney Water that not only would they take on the asset, but they'd take on the debt, which was a sweetener for us, because that $30 million of debt is an opportunity cost to council. As we pay off that debt, that's money that we could have otherwise put into the maintenance of local roads, parks, libraries, and all the rest of it. And they've told us that they'll take that $170 million asset off our hand for nothing.
Yeah, it's not.
And they'll take that revenue stream off us.
For nothing too.
For whatever it was worth. And they won't take on the debt. So we're left with the debt, but we hand over the asset. and
any potential revenue.
And because that wasn't what we were originally promised, that's why I quoted Darth Vader. You know, the deal has been changed, but pray it doesn't order it, because it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
And council feels like it has a gun to its head.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's
that vote that came before council, you know, within the last weeks, had a deadline associated with it. We had to give an indicative signal to Sydney Water that we were in earnest and that we were going to continue these negotiations, because IPART had a deadline about how they were calculating, you know, the fairness of pricing across Sydney, and they had their own process and their own timeline associated with that. And what we've done so far is to vote to continue the negotiation, but we're not at the point of contractual obligation. We haven't signed a contract. And what I think the Chamber was trying to do was express our displeasure at the fact that this deal was put to us in rosier terms earlier.
It's changed.
And it's less rosy now, and yet we're expected to just suck it up. And I don't want to suck it up.
No, and I that's where I'm sort of like, at least, just at the very least, state government, take over the debt. All right? Yeah, all right, you've got, and this is what was playing out in my mind while this debate was going on. Ageing asset that is in dire need of upgrade and maintenance. A lot of parts of it are at end of life. And that Sydney Water are like, oh, how much money we're not going to make that much money back off it. So we're just going to tell them that we're going to lose money on taking over it, and you can lose some money too because you'll just take the debt. And in my mind, well, hang on, they paid for the repairs of Rising Main C. You are entitled to at least pay, because that's a new section of pipe.
There's a peculiar Twilight Zone logic that applies when transactions are made between government instrumentalities. In any other sphere, in the commercial sphere, you know, if Microsoft wanted to buy Yahoo, or if a Chinese company wanted to buy Volvo, and there was an asset and debt, the transaction is for the asset and the debt.
Yeah,
you have to take the debt on, because that's part and parcel. And we are statutorily required to keep both our revenue and our debt associated with the sewerage, you know, compartmentalised off from the rest of council. So in my mind, they come together. To separate them, simply because you're carrying a bigger stick, like Sydney Water does, I think is a bum deal. And I just wanted to flag that I think that this is a bum deal.
Okay.
But it has a lot of other advantages, which is why we're in such a bind about what to do about this.
Well, to me, it's a no-brainer. Sydney Water has the resources. You've got the engineers, you've got the EPA testing, you've got the coordinated effort, what is needed, of knowledge, basically knowledge-based. And that is, like, Hawkesbury Council is a small, semi-rural council, and to find those engineers